Hello, everyone. I'm Amelia Niger, the Education Specialist with the Oracle Applications and Technology Users Group. I'm very excited to welcome you all to today's session, Accelerating Data Entry Bottlenecks in Oracle ERP Cloud. Before we dive in and get started, I would like to briefly introduce everyone to OATUG in case you're new to our programming. We are a community of Oracle users and we provide education, networking, and support to our members. Be sure to save the date for our Ascend conference this year. It will be at the ARIA in Vegas from June 12th to the 15th. Just a quick reminder for today's webinar, you will be on mute throughout the session. However, you are welcome to send questions at any time through the question box in your control panel, which we will address at the end for our Q&A. You will also receive a brief survey at the conclusion of this webinar. Your response will help us shape the future of our education. If you are interested in receiving CPE credit, your survey response will be required. You will also need to be logged into the session for at least 15 minutes and post at least one question. We are recording this session, and the recording as well as the slide deck will be available to OATUG members in the knowledge base. You'll see the link for that in the chat area. And now I'd like to share some information about our speaker, Andrew Gooch, who is the UK Product Development and Support Officer at More4apps. Andrew has an extensive history working with Oracle EBS in Germany and in his homeland, New Zealand. In the last few years, Gooch has settled in the UK and works at More4apps in the technical lead in Europe. He enjoys creating and assisting customers to implement robust software solutions that meet customers' needs and will stand the test of time. I'd also like to introduce our fellow panelist, Stephanie Diapolo, Global Director of Marketing for More4apps. Stephanie's expertise lies in aligning global marketing tactics to the overall corporate go-to-market strategies. She is passionate about digital marketing, customer and sales enablement, corporate branding and communications, and data-driven results. She has been certified for digital and inbound marketing and mindset selling. So thank you both so much for presenting, and Stephanie, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Amelia. And now a little bit about us. More4apps started in 2000 by a group of Oracle consultants in search of a better way to load and manage data from a spreadsheet directly connected to Oracle ERP. Now, 21 years later, we offer nearly 30 out-of-the-box wizards built specifically for Oracle eBusiness Suite and ERP Cloud with validated integration and tight security. More4apps is a market leader offering 24/7 global support coverage for our 400+ customers and 34,000+ end users. We aim to improve operational efficiencies, productivity, and accuracy of data entry. And without further ado, I'll now hand you over to Andrew.
Thanks, Stephanie, for getting us started there. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. Please make a noise if you can't hear anything. As mentioned, I'm Andrew Gooch. Today we're going to run through things roughly in this order here. So there'll be a brief discussion of the pain points in the ERP. And then we'll look at some approaches to solve those. And I'll give you a little walkthrough of the More4apps solution so you can see how that might help you. And then we're going to follow up with the Q&A session at the end. I won't be stopping for questions during the webinar. But if you have any vital things, I'm sure you can let Amelia know. But for now, let's just get started. We're going to be talking today about accelerating data entry into the ERP, Oracle Cloud ERP. So the focus is going to be on alternative methods to push the information in, and we'll be highlighting the advantages of the spreadsheet-based approach. Right, well, Oracle is a massive beast. It's got 400,000 customers in 175 countries, and it supports the administration of large and medium-sized organizations right around the globe. But that's not to say it's perfect. Like all things, it'll have its strengths and its weaknesses, and that's fine, right? It does what it's for very well. And a lot of those things where it's weaker won't impact too many of its customers, just as it's impossible for one organization to leverage all of Oracle's strengths. It's also unlikely to be hit hard by too many of the weaknesses. So those weaknesses remain unremedied by Oracle. But that's fine, that's as it should be. If Oracle preoccupied itself with being perfect as it is now, there'd be a lot less investment of resources in new features and new improvements to make the ERP better. But that leaves us as Oracle community in a sticky situation when one of the weaknesses we're talking about does directly impact us. And one of the key weaknesses Oracle has historically had and continues to this present day is in the realm of efficient data entry. ERP systems are all about data. It's the bread and butter. But inputting, uploading, and updating that data can be a real bottleneck, and it's prone to user error, which is a shame because bottlenecks of that kind impact the completeness of the data picture within the ERP, and a high error rate hits the overall data quality recorded there. And these are key features within the ERP's remit. Data quality is key. Regardless of industry, data is vital to business strategy and decision making, but data needs to be accurate and up to date to be useful. And where we have inaccurate or incomplete data, we have two problems: a bad foundation on which to build a picture of the business, and costly exercises to correct and reactualize the data set. So the second point kind of speaks for itself, but I'm going to speak a little bit about the first one. Because once data is inaccurate or incomplete, it's no longer a strong foundation on which to build a picture of your business. Forecasting is no longer reliable, reporting can't be trusted, and nasty surprises can hit you when you least expect it, or when you have insufficient time or ability to mitigate for it. And so a company can end up with reputational damage or even potential legal problems if decisions are being made based on a false picture of reality. And once the data integrity problem has been identified, it has the flow-on effect that unless a precise reason can be found to explain it, then the whole system comes under question. Would it be necessary to do a complete audit or stock take to regain trust in the system? Those are costly processes that we'd rather avoid. The research group Gartner has come up with a figure that the annual cost to a business of poor data quality can be between 9.7 and 14.2 million US dollars. Now, I'm not too sure where they come up with those numbers and how they factor in different sized businesses, but the finding is significant. And whatever the figure is, the reasons are pretty clear, from wasted resources to lost sales revenues. And left unchecked, that bad data will build on itself. So those numbers will just get worse year on year. So what steps can we take to avoid that situation? Well, the first is to know your data. ERPs receive data in many forms and from a variety of different sources. There'll be plenty of customer or supplier provided non-digital data, hard copy invoices, requisitions, receipts, things like that, and probably some form of personal dialogue and requests or demands over telephone or in person. And there's likely to be customer and supplier provided digital data, maybe external data files, website interactions, and web service. Lots of different formats and methods you could expect to see that in. And then typically you'd expect to see interfaces with external data sources, maybe transactional sharing with an entity like a bank or a trading platform. And there'll be interaction with other systems within the organization that fall outside the remit of the ERP, be they IT systems managing manufacturing processes and plant, standalone third-party HR systems, or bespoke task-based systems built for the organization itself. This kind of things, and there could be lots of them, and all of that needs to get into the ERP. And there really are just two methods of doing that. The first and most basic one is direct data entry. The user enters the information directly into the system via user forms or scans items into a warehouse or dispatch room, that sort of thing. Direct action by the end user. And then you have your interfaces, automated to varying levels depending on the solution selected or the mechanism employed. Some will be seeded Oracle processes, and for others, more of a bespoke approach will be needed, usually some form of custom development. In a perfect world, we'd have extremely streamlined data entry mechanisms with minimal human interaction and scope for error, and be able to tailor every aspect of data that comes into our ERP to be a best fit for those mechanisms. But that's utopia, and ultimately we can only control so much of what reaches us. So it's a good exercise to recognize what can be influenced to our benefit and what can't. Can't because it absolutely can't, maybe because of the shape and form the data comes in, or can't within our budgetary and priority constraints. And once we've identified where we can influence our ERP data inputs to our benefit, we're in a much better position. Every company will have different priorities. And from an ERP data perspective, what it makes sense to invest budget in will vary significantly between organizations. Where you want to pour your money is your choice. And obviously, you want to spend it in a way that gives you the maximum return. But budgets are limited, and we can't spend money everywhere. And even if they weren't, IT resources are limited. So there's only so many man hours in a week, month, quarter, or financial year. So what do we do about those areas that we haven't identified as top priority for IT automation or big spend projects? Those elements that within our constraints can't be automated, interfaced, or tailored to our requirements. That's to say our bottlenecks. It's not to say they're not important. A manufacturing company might focus its energies on manufacturing process implementation, but invoicing and procurement are still vital elements of the business. So we want to find the best solutions for those roadblocks, but we need to balance cost with reward. And for those, we fall back on just a few options. We can do nothing. Maybe we can live with the pain and inefficiency for now. Maybe we'll divert budget and energy to it in a future project. We could increase our head count. This is a blunt force approach, isn't it? We'll hire more staff and use a ramrod to force that data through the bottleneck. Or we can go and try to find a better process. Oracle's mass data entry solutions and third-party solutions generally. So let's start by talking about the first of those points. Oracle's default entry mechanism for data elements is end user entry forms. Each is customized for its own particular task. So the functionality of these is at a maximum, but on the usability side of things, they score much lower. The more complex the data element being entered, the more complex the entry form. Subforms hidden under tabs and subfiles are the norm. The nature of the forms, what gives them their strength from a functionality point of view, is their undoing when it comes to the speed of data entry. There's only so much screen real estate available to present the data properly. So it's not possible to display all the data elements to the user simultaneously. And except for at a very high level, it's also generally difficult to view more than one record at a time. So comparisons between records is difficult too. And the user is forced to drill down to see the detail and then back up to the top and down again to see the same details for another record. If transactional volume in that area is low, we can probably live with that. But that volume won't be constant. Business activity will lead to surges and troughs. And when we have a surge, say we want to onboard a number of suppliers because of an acquisition, we're faced with a problem. Either we accept the delays that this data entry will cause to the availability of that new data in the system and our BAU processes that inevitably fall behind schedule, or we do something about it. And the most obvious thing to do is, as I said, increase the headcount of data enterers to cope with the bottleneck. Now, neither of these is very appealing. Sticking with user forms costs time and increasing headcount costs money. But once we've recognized our pain and the areas in our business where we have surges and data entry bottlenecks that hurt our ability to run our business, we can take steps to alleviate it. And there are tools out there in the marketplace that can help. Oracle's provided a number, and we'll look at those shortly. And there are third-party software houses like More4apps, which deliver shortcuts too. Well, how do these work? Well, I've spoken a bit about the data entry form mechanism for data entry, and another completely different approach is the spreadsheet mechanism. And many of the Oracle and third-party solutions hit the problem from this angle. Instead of navigating through the entry forms to find and edit particular data elements, with this approach, all the data elements are presented in a grid format for the user to see, a column for each element. The user populates that worksheet and uploads it from there. So how is that an improvement on forms data entry? The user still has to populate the data, right? Well, let's think about the data we're entering. What does it look like? In many cases, it's going to be in digital format to start with. Reports, extracts, data files, and with spreadsheets, you're in a position to manipulate that digital information directly. Copy and paste it into your worksheet, open CSVs or data files directly, and merge that data into your loading template. So that's already a massive time saver when you consider the manual effort you're going to avoid rekeying it all. And where it's not in digital format, well, there's always going to be a task to type that in. But using the entry forms carries significant overhead along with it, along with the typing, due to the complicated layout of the standard Oracle forms. Different data elements will be on different forms, subforms, tabs. So your user has to do a lot of navigation, moving the mouse here, clicking this button, that tab, scrolling down left and right. With spreadsheets, that layer is removed. So you have a static grid. So there's no hunting for data elements. They stay in the same place. All you need is familiarity with the layout. There are also a lot of features within spreadsheets to aid the data entry itself. You can see them in the list there. And there's also no need for database loads each time a data element is interrogated. Your data entry time is just limited to the keying. Basically, spreadsheet solutions center around a 2 or maybe 3-step process. You prepare your data, you load your data, and then maybe you react to any errors that you encounter, as compared to the entry forms process, which is determined by the number of records being loaded. You prepare record 1, save record 1, prepare record 2, save record 2. This fundamental difference in approach brings rewards with processing outcomes outside of the obvious gains in data gathering and entry. Humans don't multitask nearly as well as they believe they do. So if the mind can be focused on data entry, error corrections, as individual high-level tasks, rather than constantly switching between low-level tasks for each record, there's a huge gain in data entry performance. And on a technical level, there are dramatic differences between the two as well. If you think of the number of times the database has been interrogated in the two different processes, it becomes clear why. With forms, each click of a button, tab, or search control leads to a dialogue with the database. But just the navigation alone can eat up minutes of time per record, outside of the time spent keying in the data. And once the data is saved or committed, the feedback will be returned on screen on the current page. So corrections require the same additional transactions. And then at the end of each record, the user will need to navigate back to the highest level to start the process again for the next record. And all of this takes time. And over large volumes of data, this lost time becomes quite significant. With spreadsheets, the process is more streamlined. Some steps fall out entirely. There's no real navigation cost at all. The grid format means all controls are available simultaneously, regardless of the level of detail that they represent. Data validation occurs as part of the load process, so it's separate to the data entry process. So the user can focus on populating the spreadsheet data without interruption. And this can be done without consulting the database at all if the user is familiar with the data set. And there are further accelerations too. Similar records will have similar values for various controls. So copy and paste, copy down, copy right can be employed to speed things up. And you can employ formulas and calculations to source values methodically. And then some tools, like the More4apps tool, have defaulting options to seed data values on your behalf. So even if there is an element of manual keying, there's scope here to achieve that manual entry considerably faster than with the entry forms. And once that data is entered, the whole data set is turned over to the database to be loaded. It's a single task per data set, not per record or transaction. So the burden on the user is the same were it to be a load of 5 records or 5,000. After the load, the results for each record are returned and the user can interpret those messages and modify the original data set and then reload the records which contain modifications. And this is a much better approach because the user can focus on the individual tasks rather than the individual records. And typically errors which present for one record will present for others too. And that's where spreadsheets are at their best, Corrections can be replicated easy with the copy and paste sort of thing. And you can reorder or sort or filter your view of the data easily to identify records with the same patterns. And like I said, copy and paste and other shortcuts to do the corrections fast and robustly. So hopefully I've convinced you. For data entry of any significant volume compared with entry forms, spreadsheet loading is miles ahead. Put simply, here's how it should look. The data owners can can download their data from Oracle and upload changes or new records completely from within the spreadsheet. And if it's done right, there's no IT involvement, so they retain complete control of the process. So, how do we go about taking advantage of this approach? Well, as I said earlier in the discussion, there are essentially two avenues you can go down. Oracle's mass data entry solutions and third-party solutions. So we'll talk about these each in turn, starting with Oracle's offerings. This is the list of the currently available ones. They are included in your Oracle license. So on the surface are attractive propositions, certainly from an economic perspective. They've all got their relative strengths and weaknesses. So we'll dive a little deeper into the detail for each now. As an organization, it's important to try and measure the value of the benefits they provide weighed up against their weaknesses. And depending on the shape and volume of your data, some of the weaknesses might prove to be showstoppers. So let's learn a little about them. Starting with AD-FDI. So this one would be familiar to anyone coming from an EBS background that's had dealings with Web ADI. It's essentially the same solution. An add-in to Excel allows you to directly load your data from a predefined template. Feedback is returned inline following completion of the import process, which is the best approach for error resolution. And there's field validation available in the spreadsheet to help with data entry. It's definitely more user-friendly than the FBDI approach we'll talk about in a minute, and it runs almost in real time. Well, except that in most cases, there's an import process running via an interface as a separate step. One of the biggest hurdles from a user perspective is the one sheet per record type limitation. So you need a sheet for headers and a per header a sheet for its lines. And if there is more than one level, then you need a sheet for each level of your hierarchy, and that they all have to be linked. So it can be a bit of a hassle getting things lined up. And you can't glance over it all top to bottom to make sure that all your levels exist for each element. So there are some negatives there. And so let's see how it ranks. This is a score list for this one, and we'll see similar score sheets for the other tools in a minute. Really, it comes down to scoring which of the strengths are most important to you and which of the weaknesses you can live with. And you have to consider who is doing your data entry, their level of knowledge and expertise, and how well the process will work within your teams. With AD-FDI, a major drawback is the limited number of templates. It's really only available for a small number of processes. The field validation in there is a little bit clunky. It's just one field at a time. And there's a bit of a lack of flexibility around the templates. You can't do a whole lot to influence the columns in the worksheet, neither their ordering or which ones are going to be displayed. And the download is very limited. In most cases, it's not even there or not typically suited to your requirements. Additionally, there are some problems with large volumes and performance. So you need to be mindful of that with the big jobs, particularly if you've got deadlines to consider. And then you also have to consider that there's significant patching and retesting required to keep AD-FDI running as it should. So that's something you need to factor in when you're costing the whole solution here. The FBDI is the one that most of us have heard of. Oracle provides a really large array of these loading templates, and they're tailored for individual specific tasks and provide a pretty comfortable spreadsheet interface for populating the data. The templates themselves are static. The end user populates them in Excel and then passes them up to Oracle via a loading mechanism native to the ERP. For static data, they're a decent solution, and for that reason, they're heavily employed for migrations, mergers, acquisitions. There's a lack of flexibility here that does limit their suitability for more dynamic data sets. And the administrative overhead that comes with the loading process counts against them for BAU. And when non-technical staff users are expected to get involved. Additionally, this option is based on ODI, the Oracle Data Integrator, and it's worth keeping an eye on this because it's being de-supported in some areas. Customer experience and B2B are examples there. If we look at a score sheet for this one, FBDI templates are essentially one file per data type. So headers, lines, suppliers and sites, they'll all be on separate worksheets, and you need to link them together properly to load them and load them in the correct sequence. Your headers will need to be processed before your lines are uploaded. So to think about whether this will work for you, potentially an issue with a header for supplier A might lead to delays getting supplier B's addresses loaded, for example. So how much of a problem is that going to be? The most significant weaknesses really are centered around the lack of download functionality, and that makes it quite difficult to populate your worksheet for updates, and most notably the convoluted upload process, particularly when handling errors. To highlight that, we have a process flow diagram for the FBDI upload here. And the problem is pretty obvious when you see it laid out like this. There are 8 steps for each pass, and each time you strike an error, you have to repeat the 8 steps. And that error notification is typically in a PDF report, which doesn't support easy resolution. The slow nature of the upload processes can actually undo all the gains you've made using the spreadsheet to prepare the data. And it's not a very comfortable interface for your end users. The Import-Export Manager is the new framework that we're starting to see emerge in some areas. It hasn't been rolled out too much. Product management is one area where you'll see it. It's a process much in line with how FBDI works, but it will import directly into the base tables rather than the interface tables. So it's not a two-step process from that perspective at least. Now there's a mapping task to be done with each file layout you use. And once you have that, you can import similar files fairly easily using a series of admin steps. It's quite robust. And if you're in a situation where your requirements remain pretty static, it works pretty well and very fast. The framework will import data files with up to about 50,000 records. And there's a variety of file formats available to you. What it doesn't offer is flexibility. So you won't be able to amend your maps with new attributes or remove redundant ones. You need to do the whole mapping task again if you need to make changes like that. Here's a score sheet for this one. And really, it runs into the same problems as FBDI. The process involves just as much lead work. And so far, there's no scheduler, so it relies on manual import steps. There are some key advantages over FBDI though. You get some flexibility around the template column content, column layout and so on. And there's a rudimentary download function there in some cases. But it really requires some expertise to get it running and to interpret the errors. So I'm not sure anyone considers this as a tool suitable for end users on a day-to-day basis. Lastly, we're going to talk about VBCS. This is Oracle's Excel front end to its REST services. It's essentially a design studio for building loaders into ERP Cloud, and it's actually quite a powerful tool. You can define a loading tool for any publicly published REST service on your instance, using the Oracle business objects or your own custom ones. It will then allow you to design layouts based on the parameters to those web services, and then to configure validation for each. What the tool does provide is a very, very flexible method of creating solutions to bottlenecks specific to your business. You can identify a pain point, build a loader, publish it, and then sit back and enjoy the benefits of the Excel loader approach to data entry. What it doesn't provide you is much in the way of a starting point. So each solution you build will be a mini IT project in itself. You'll need to research and select the web services you need, assign a knowledgeable IT resource to build, configure and test the process, roll it out to your users, maintain it. Keep it up to date with the Oracle release changes to your web service. So you've got a powerful tool here, but you still have to find the time and resources to manage it. This is another table of pros and cons for this one. There are some irksome features I've found with this one. The parent-child relationships are quite limited, so you can only go down one level. Complicated areas like suppliers or purchase orders with deep data hierarchies will lead you to have to create quite a myriad of templates. Where they exist, those parent-child solutions are based on a one-sheet approach, so you can't see more than one record at the parent level at a time. Whereas if you add a new header record to a form table sheet, you lose the one you were previously working on. There's also a complicated default workflow to unlock the sheet to enter your data. It requires you to use the VBCS engine to insert new rows or new sheets, and that doesn't work as intuitively as a regular Excel user would expect. Cell formatting changes don't flow through to new sheets or new rows, and the download is, although powerful, is a bit of a robot in that it dumps the new information right over what you had. So you can't effectively compare existing data with proposed data if you need to for error correcting and that sort of thing. And the other large limitation is the reliance on the RESTful services. So if the REST service doesn't exist, you're stuck unless you write your own. So in the case where Oracle maybe has a SOAP service for creation and a REST service for updates, you're going to strike a limitation there that will hinder you. And until recently, this was the case in purchasing with purchase orders. So that's what Oracle has for us. Mostly quite niche solutions, suitable for some processes, not general enough really for BAU, and in the main relying on quite a lot of expertise that doesn't usually sit within the data entry teams. So what does that leave us with? ERP Cloud is a relatively new offering from Oracle, so the third-party marketplace is not particularly mature right now. Mostly what's there are products which just offer a layer above the Oracle solutions. They make the user experience a little more pleasant, but they don't really represent a stride forwards. The exception is More4apps, and we've brought the ERP Cloud toolbox to the market. This is the standout solution at the moment. You have a suite of tools there designed to address the weaknesses in the Oracle approaches directly, to enrich the data entry experience and to deliver all the advantages of the spreadsheet loading approach without any reliance on IT resources and expensive technical support. More4apps had been engaged in the Oracle EBS space for more than 2 decades, so we're ideally placed to bring that expertise to the ERP Cloud space. In a nutshell, here's the More4apps approach. Simple processing with built-in upload and download, completely pre-configured from flexible and reusable spreadsheets. If you've seen the More4apps EBS tools before, you'll find the user interface layer of the ERP Cloud toolbox quite familiar. The products are designed to leverage all the advantages we talked about with the spreadsheet loading process, but more than that, to maximize the autonomy of the end user and place the whole of the data entry process at their fingertips, eliminating reliance on other people and teams, specifically expensive and potentially busy IT resources. The whole of the data loading procedure takes place in the worksheet. Data entry at all levels, even for complex hierarchical data, validation, loading, and then error response and resolution. So we've taken away all the downsides of FBDI and Import-Export Manager. The spreadsheet can be populated via direct download from Oracle, providing the information perfectly formatted for immediate updates or for massaging into new records with the minimum of fuss. User-friendly edit forms are available to inspect the data values for each field, and the design allows visibility of many fields simultaneously, akin to the Oracle forms in a way, so much more convenient than the ADFDI method. So the user experience is very agreeable. There's complete support for key and descriptive flex fields. And the loads are done at the single click of a button. As far as feedback, success or failure is recorded in line for all records loaded, and all error messages appear where you need it in the spreadsheet to identify and correct the issues easily. And once they're resolved, you just load the data again. Any previously loaded records are skipped, and the whole data set can be processed with the least amount of effort. You've got support for attachments where relevant, and the tools harness the Oracle public web services, so are fully compliant with your Oracle support agreements. We've designed the tools to outperform the Oracle products as much as possible. The aim is to harness the Oracle secure resources to improve the user experience and reduce the reliance on technical know-how that usually doesn't sit in your functional teams. So just looking at the functionality of our tools at a high level in comparison to the Oracle solutions, you can see what we've aimed to achieve. The idea is that More4apps pre-configured templates give you the best of all worlds. The security is handled directly through your Oracle user authentication. The tool works fine under standard or single sign-on. And at a deeper level, the access is granted by the cloud standard approach, which is tied to roles. And the downloads come through the BI report engine. So they're all digitally signed and safe from that perspective. Right, I'm going to show you a demo now of how it works. It's a brief run through of one of our modules. We've got an Oracle patch going on this week. I have a recording for you here. I just recorded it yesterday, so the audio might clip out, and I'm going to have to change my screen recording mechanism, so hopefully I don't stuff this up. But I'm going to do that now, so things might just clip a little bit differently. So I'll kick that off now. When the ERP Cloud Toolbox is installed on your PC, you'll see a new tab in your Excel ribbon with the More4apps label. And if you click over to that, you can see all the controls for the cloud integration. If you click on the Login button, you can connect the Excel spreadsheet to Oracle. By clicking on the Instances button, you can set up connections to as many Oracle environments as you like. And then just select the one you want to work in from the list and log in. You put in your Oracle credentials. And now your Excel workbook is connected to the Oracle Cloud. To get started working, you'll need a data sheet. So click on New Sheet. And at this point, you select the module and template. In this instance, I've got 4 modules installed. We'll look at the procurement one today. And for that module, there are 4 integrators at present. And each one of those is a template of a particular set of relevant columns. So they're going to generate different sheets. We'll start with purchase requisitions. And the new sheet has all the columns I need to manage recs. If I scroll across, you can see them. DFFs, headers, lines, so on. The clear columns are where the data elements are going to go. And the grey columns are feedback columns where we'll see the results of our validations and loads. The worksheet is broadly arranged into sections of columns related to the setup of the data capture on the Oracle forms. But you can easily tailor the spreadsheet. Cut the columns you don't need or aren't using. For example, my instance doesn't have a DFF setup, so I'll take out the DFF columns over here. And I can easily move columns around to get the layout I want. So we'll just swap these 2 around over here. That's all standard Excel stuff. Now that the template's ready, let's create some requisitions. So how would you go about populating the sheet? Well, it's Excel, so we can just start by typing into the worksheet directly. And you can see as I'm typing this that it's faster than navigating various forms and subforms in Oracle via the browser, but it's still a fairly slow process. But actually, if that data has been collected digitally, it shouldn't be necessary to retype it at all. I've got this source document, and Excel's copy and paste function means I can transfer it over to my source document in seconds. Now, a lot of the values are going to repeat for each requisition. So rather than entering that in each time, we can put those values into the defaults row here at the top and let the toolbox populate them automatically for us where they're needed. You can see I can use static values or formulas here, and indeed formulas are supported right throughout the worksheet. Okay, we're ready to put them up to Oracle. In the ribbon here, you can see two buttons I can use now. The first will validate the data to make sure it all makes sense, and the second one is for loading up to Oracle. And actually the upload option runs the validation pass anyway, so I'll just click on that, and I have the choice to do a selection or the whole sheet, which is what I'll do here. The first thing I see is all those defaults dropping in, so you can see the time I've saved there pretty clearly. And when the upload is running, I'll get feedback on what's happening in this pop-up window, and when it finishes, the results will be written into the worksheet. And all these loads are using the Oracle public REST services, so you have the same security and confidence you would have doing manual creations in the Oracle forms. All finished. Now you can see on row 21 there's an error. One of the values must have been wrong, and the validation has picked it up. So that rec hasn't been loaded, but the rest have. And if I scroll across to the lines, I can see the problem. The unit of measure isn't right. That's easy enough to fix. Let's just copy down the value from the row above. Then I can upload just that rec on its own using upload selected. Easy. To look at some of the other functionality here, let's just use another integrator. I'll create a new sheet using the standard purchase orders integrator. As you can see, a new integrator means a different set of columns to work with, and each of the templates are customized for the task in hand. With this one, I can manipulate purchase orders. So I'll bring down some purchase orders using the built-in download function. Now I could open the download form and add filters to bring down a list of POs matching the criteria I set. But in this case, I have a list of PO numbers I want to work with. So I can copy those into the worksheet and use the download via sheet option. For these POs, I want to make a change to the payment terms. So I'll set the action to update over here, and then scroll over to the terms column. Now, changes in POs need to change reasons, so I'll start by filling that in for each. But the payment terms is an Oracle validated value, so I want to be sure I pick the right one that Oracle allows. I can make sure of that by clicking on this button here and opening up the edit form. So I use the wildcard and search button to bring up the allowed values for the terms and select the one I want from the list. When I close the form, I can see the toolbox validation's been performed, and I got colors feeding back that everything is in order. I'll transfer that terms value down for the other POs. Now at this point I could upload those changes, but I also want to add an attachment to one of the POs. So I'll scroll over there and use the edit forms to get that ready. You can see in this form all the options I'd expect for creating an attachment. I'll fill in the details and select my file. And now I'm ready to send all my changes up to Oracle. And like before, it's a simple matter of clicking on the upload button and it's away. I'm uploading my header level updates and creating my attachment all at the same time. And if I were to open up Oracle, I'd see those changes reflected right away. Well, I hope that was informative. The idea is that it's a tool designed to enable your functional team members to work with large volumes of data completely independently from any IT input. Well, the process is handled within teams, and decisions that need to be made about poor data elements land right in front of the person who has the knowledge to make the right choices. And what's more, they can make those choices and reload the data straight away. So there's no extra processes needed to manage it all. And the advantages aren't just limited to the data teams involved. On this slide, you can see the benefits that ripple through the organization. Once you can rely on your ERP data being up to date and complete, your business will have a far more reliable picture of what's happening to make better, more informed decisions. It also means your IT teams are not bogged down supporting the day-to-day management of data loading. And the added benefit is that your individual employees enjoy a better work experience, released from all those tedious data entry tasks. So that helps to build a more motivated and fulfilled culture within those teams. The ERP Cloud Toolbox has 4 modules available right now. And within each is a range of features to accelerate your data entry. In black, we have the currently available functionality, and in gray, the features that are in the pipeline as things stand at the moment. The new functionality is being added all the time, and as it arrives into a module that you own, it's included for you at no extra cost. We also have plans for further modules covering inventory, sales, and TCA. Just looking ahead into the next quarter, we have firm dates for the release of the extra budgets and AR invoices functionality, and this list will grow as 2022 progresses. So we got to it. That concludes the session. Hopefully you found it informative. And of course, we are available at any point to take you through a more detailed session of any of our solutions. So just reach out there. But for now, if there are any questions related to what you've seen today, this is the time to address them. So hopefully we've got some, and I'll do my best to give you an answer. And in those cases where I can't, I'll undertake to get the answers back to you after the session ends.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was a great presentation. We'll give our attendees a moment to go ahead and type in those questions. Until then, we do have a couple of links in the chat I wanted to point out. The first is a link to our knowledge base where OATUG members can go back and access this recording as well as the slide deck. The second link is for our Ascend conference that will be in Vegas that we spoke of earlier. So thanks for putting that up on the screen, Andrew. Appreciate that. I do not see any questions at this time. Andrew, I think you did such a good job covering everything in that demo and throughout the presentation.
Everybody's been put to sleep by 40 minutes of my voice.
Not at all. I thought it was very great. Oh, here we go. We've got them coming in here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and copy this so that I can put it in the chat for everyone to see. Here we go. Our first question, is it possible to download example and overview of all unpaid invoices?
Yes, there is download functionality built into the tool. So at the top, if you think back to what we were looking at the screen, at the top on the ribbon, there were download and upload buttons. So depending on the product, it'll be a different download. So the finance module that has the AP, let's say it's the AP invoices you're talking about. Yeah, as long as you're in the right sheet and you've got the right module selected in terms of the sheet that you're looking at, it'll download the information pertinent to the columns in front of you. So yeah, you've got the invoice number and all of that in the sheet. As a column heading, you'll get those invoice details down. In terms of whether it's all unpaid invoices versus whatever other filters you want to use, each product will have its own filters. So I can't tell you that it's going to be all unpaid invoices is available to you without knowing that product a little bit tighter. But that's exactly the sort of functionality that will be in there. And if you download, say you don't have the filter of unpaid invoices, you can use Excel to sort by status or by amount owing to get that sort of stuff pretty easily as well.
All right, thank you. We've got a second question I'll be posting. Are the products licensed by Oracle module?
The products are licensed by our module. So if I go, I'm not sure if I can get back to that slide that I showed you here. So you would buy a license for procurement or projects or product definitions. It's a lot sitting on Oracle. Our licensing model is separate. And so when you, for example, when you say you purchased projects, you would have access to those, eventually those 8 features that are listed. There will be more actually, but at the moment, those are the ones that are on the timetable. And yeah, you'll be paying by, I guess, number of users against the project. So you could have one person doing assets, another person doing costing, and that would all be licensed. That would be 2 users for the project license. And just while I'm on that topic, it's a subscription-based licensing model. So you're paying per user per period that you want to use the product, and you can obviously end your arrangement with us at the end of that period whenever you like.
All right. I do not see any other questions at this time. However, I do want to add to our attendees to please hang on and make sure you take our survey at the end, which will help us greatly. We will very much appreciate your feedback. All right.
And you can get in touch with us here at that email address that you can see there. And then I'll just advance this onto your Ascend slide, Amelia, as I did before.
There we are. Well, thank you again, Andrew, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you for our attendees also for coming out today. Again, this will all be uploaded into our knowledge base. This does conclude our session for today. Everyone, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.